All right, 7 losers of the NFL draft. Listen, there's no such thing as a pure loser of the draft, right? Every team gets better in the draft. But to me, the way I value if you're a loser or if you're a winner isn't who got the least amount of value. It's who got the least amount of value given your draft capital. Who took advantage of the draft capital they had the worst heading into draft weekend. So again, if you made a trade and got rid of some picks, well, then that still counts as what you did during the draft, in my opinion. Starting off with the Atlanta Falcons as a loser, in my opinion, they are one of the 7 losers. I just didn't love the Bijan Robinson pick because I don't think you should take a running back with pick number 8. That's just my opinion on it. Again, I know people are going to disagree with that, and it's totally subjective as to when you think that you should take a running back. But to me, with pick number 8, the only time I think you should really think about taking a running back in the first round is if you're sort of a complete roster, ready to in the middle of a championship window that doesn't have so much time left. You're just trying to maximize those couple of years. That's this scenario. I would do it. For Bijan, I just don't think it's the right scenario. Sure, there's a chance he ends up being an incredible running back. A lot of guys drafted in the top 10 do end up being very good running backs. But the question is just, how does this move help them win a Super Bowl? The odds of this pick, ending with them hosting the Lombardi Trophy seem like it's very slim, and seems like they're going to have to hit on other picks later on. So again, it's totally subjective, but it's just a running back value question. It's not something that I would personally do, which is why I'm not a huge fan of it. Moving on to the Dallas Cowboys. The Dallas Cowboys, who, I don't know if they're massive losers. And this is where things get weird, where it's like, I want to make, every year I do this, 7 winners, 7 losers, 7 overrated, 7 underrated. There's typically not 7 teams that I'm like, they did a disastrous draft. Like, I like Mazi Smith. I do think it's a bit of a reach, though. So it's not like a pick I'm blown away by that saved the draft or anything. And then the Luke Schoonmaker pick was just weird at 58, projected to go 110. And they just had some weird picks. Like, DeMarvin Overshown, I thought was just a bit of a reach. I thought really kind of all of their selections were just a bit of a reach. I mean, you look at, where they were selected according to the consensus big board. The only guy they got that they selected after they were projected to go on the consensus big board was Deuce Vaughn, who they selected with pick 212 and was projected to go 142. Other than that, every single player they reached on. So that's why I have them here. It's not a massive issue, but it is one I put as a loss. And I also put the Commanders, their division rival, on this list for kind of a similar reason. It's like, I like Emmanuel Forbes. To me, Emmanuel Forbes is worth a mid-first round pick, but I don't know why they got him over Christian Gonzalez. Maybe they like something, they feel like he can fit in their scheme better. I don't know, but that was a surprise for me. And for them, they ended up with 7 picks in this draft class. Literally every single one of them was a reach according to the consensus big board. You might not care about that stuff so much, but typically when you reach on a player, they more often than not play as well as people thought they were going to be, and not when they were actually selected. So that's just again, they got some good players. I actually when I went through I made my evaluation about the Commanders and went through each of their picks, I totally understood why they made each pick, but it kind of felt like they were maybe chasing needs a little bit and ended up not getting the most value they could have out of this draft class, just in my opinion. We then have the Jets. The Jets are a very fascinating team on this loss list because, the later picks didn't really move the needle for me too much one way or the other. Okay, listen, like the Zaire Barnes selection, getting the 528th ranked player at pick 184 isn't my favorite, but I'm not going to really put them on the winners or losers category based on what you do at 184 typically. Again, the Joe Tippmann pick was fine. I thought was maybe a tad of a reach, but I thought was fine. Some people probably like that pick a lot. Carter Warren, kind of same thing, a little bit of a reach there. Drafted him at 120, was projected to go 190. And then Will McDonald, another one that was a reach for me. Obviously, that's the big one. Selected at 15, was projected to go 34, and he just wasn't my favorite prospect to begin with. So even as an early second round grade, I was a bit wary on that. They got him in the mid first round. So fills a need for him. And again, this is where you get into some issues. Drafting for need instead of drafting best player available is sometimes you have a situation where the guy you need isn't the best player available, and you're basically giving up a better player to try and round out your roster, which if you are in the middle of a championship window, you can do, and the Jets are in the middle of a championship window, so I get the argument for it. Here's one that is another bunch of reaches, the Detroit Lions, who, Jahmyr Gibbs, I do have to say, was projected to go in the first round. He was projected to go 29th. That was his, where the consensus big board had him going. So it's not like he wasn't supposed to be a hyped up running back or anything. But at number 12, you already know how I felt about Bijan Robinson, selecting him at number 8. At least for him, I feel like he has the potential to be a game-changing running back. And I want to be clear, I think Gibbs is going to be a really good running back for them. I think he's going to really help out the roster. But I don't love his blocking, which is a bit of an issue when I don't feel like you're a complete running back and you're getting selected at 12. Maybe they feel like they can fix it. I don't know. But that is a concern for me. It's running back value. They just don't have a ton of value at pick number 12, in my opinion. This is the move you make when you're trying to compete right now. They're trying to compete right now. That's what they're doing. Also, Jack Campbell at pick 18, who I like. I had a first-round grade on. I'm less mad about the Jack Campbell pick. I really am. It's a bit of a reach, but it's a position of need. Teams make Jack Campbell-type selections a pretty good amount, in this draft class. To me, this and the Will McDonald one, I kind of like the Campbell pick better than the Will McDonald pick, to be honest. But it's just the Lions already kind of got some head scratched with the Jahmyr Gibbs pick at 12, so now it kind of became a thing. I also didn't get why they got Sam Laporta over Michael Mayer. Personally, I like Mayer better. Some people like Laporta better, so I guess they're one of them, clearly. But that was a bit of a surprise. Another reach on the consensus big board. The Hendon Hooker pick was interesting to me. I'm not mad at the Hendon Hooker pick. I'm just a little confused about what the plan is there. Maybe it's just to get a backup in the building with pick 68. I think I kind of like that pick, actually. And I love the Brian Branch pick. So this was not a disastrous draft by any means. They got 5 players who could someday be contributors, one of them at the quarterback position. That's not a terrible draft, but they had so much draft capital, they probably should have gotten more out of this draft class. I think both can be true. Again, the expression I heard that, by PFF Mike Renner that I've repeated a couple times, I'll probably repeat a couple more, the tweet of the Lions went into a steakhouse and ordered a cheeseburger, kind of feels like what happened there. The Packers, 2 teams left on the losers, number 6, and again, these are in no particular order. The Packers I did put on here. I'm just not a crazy Lucas Van Ness fan. I originally went through the list and got my 7 losers, and they weren't on the initial list, but I didn't have 7, so I had to pick someone else, and so I went with the Packers to include to the list. There's a chance that this draft actually ends up being okay. This is a pretty Packers draft. My video about this one was entitled "A Very Packers Draft" because that's kind of how it felt. They went after very Packers type players, but those just aren't necessarily the players I would go after. It's maybe a team building philosophy strategy, but there were just maybe some slight L's in the draft selection, like the Luke Musgrave and Jaden Reed selections both I felt like were slight reaches. Tucker Kraft is fine. He's not saving the draft. He's not ruining it for me. Feels like he's fine. And I also really thought that this Sean Clifford pick was essentially just lighting a pick on fire as someone who's supposed to be a backup quarterback. I get it. They need a backup quarterback, but I don't, projected to go 423rd on the consensus big board. They got him at 149. I just didn't really love that, and I don't know how many game changers they got. Also drafted a kicker, which is usually a bad idea, so just some question marks here in this draft class for me, although, again, I do think that there's a couple players who should be good. Lucas Van Ness, I'm just not a huge fan of. I did not have a first-round grade on him. They got him at 13, but was 15th on the consensus big board, so I'm not going to crush it because other people also really liked him. But for me, it's one of my opinions, one of, the 7 losses. For me, I'm putting it there. The Bears are also here. Bears picked at, listen, I don't think this is a terrible draft either. Them and the Packers both, I kind of feel like, are maybe slight L's in this one because I thought they had a few reaches, not by massive amounts, but, they had 4 picks in the top 100. Each one of those picks, the player they got, they drafted before the consensus big board expected them to go. Darnell Wright projected to go 19th. They picked him at 10. teams reach for tackles, but that to me felt like they were drafting for need, which they have so many holes. I don't think that's a smart idea. It's rarely a smart idea in general to draft for need, especially when you're a rebuilding team like Chicago. Javon Dexter, who was picked 53rd, projected to go 72nd. Tyreek Stevenson was picked 54th, projected to go 69th. Zach Pickens, projected to go 64th, ended up going 90th. Or projected to go 93rd, ended up going 64th. So a couple picks I like later on in the draft. Tyler Scott and Roschon Johnson were actually kind of steals in this draft class, but as a whole, it was again, a slight L for me for them and the Packers. Hey, good job, Vikings. You managed to be the only team in the NFC North to not end up on this list. So I guess you get some credit for that. But yeah, those are my 7 losers. And again, every team still got good players. Every team is going to get a solid player out of this draft class that is on my loser list, but I think those teams could have gotten more, in my opinion. But what do I know? I'm just a guy on YouTube. So let me know what you know in the comments below. Tell me your thoughts. Always love hearing from you. And of course, as always, thanks for watching.